Hi Aquarius, welcome to your week ahead astrology forecast by Astrology Motivation from Born Without Boundaries. In these weekly videos, I review the major planetary aspects and transits, and then I let you know how they're impacting your natal sun and what that could mean for your bottom line. All you need to know or understand for this video is your birthday. That's it. Everything else I will translate for you. I'm going to start off really broad with the big stuff. And then I'm going to get into more Aquarius specific information. And then I'll whittle everything down into the deep specifics of the decans. I break everything down into the 3 decans of Aquarius. A decan is a group of 10 degrees. And that just allows me to understand exactly how your natal sun is being aspected by the other planets. And that will let me know what impact it could have on your week. The big stuff. This is for the week of August 30th to September 5th, 2023. You guys, there's a lot going on this week. So the day before, yesterday, till the 29th, Uranus went into retrograde. Now, that directly impacts you because you are ruled by Uranus. Uranus in retrograde is more introspective change and more introspective surprises, and this sense of really kind of wanting to rattle ourselves up and loosen up the norm and not really wanting the same old. And so from this point on, what really, when Uranus is aspecting things, it's going to be more internal, even if it's internal in terms of inside departments or inside a structure like institutions and stuff. But it's going to be more internal surprises that are going to start to bubble up and make things recreate from the inside out. So we also have on the 30th our full moon. So today is a full moon in Pisces. If you're in the States, it's going to happen at night between 6:30 to 9:30, depending on whether you're the West Coast or the East Coast. But you should get a beautiful view. The moon's already big. You can see it. It's a super moon, which means that the moon is closer and it's going to have a heavier pull on us. It's just going to be a deeper pull on us. I'm looking forward to it. I think aesthetically it's going to be absolutely extraordinary because I've noticed the past few nights the moon is already big and gloriously beautiful. So I just can't wait to see. And the details you can see when the moon is this close, like the different kinds of shadows and craters and stuff that you can actually see. It's so beautiful. But we also have a little special guest that impacts you guys as well because it's your traditional ruler, Saturn. There's been news articles galore about this, how we'll be able to see Saturn and the supermoon at the same time, and you will. And that's why I think it'll be quite spectacular, but visually. But in terms of the astrology, Saturn and the moon are very different energies, and when they conjunct, it's a difficult combination because it's restricting and restraining emotions and feelings that want to expand and grow. And it's kind of like picking and choosing the sense of what is working and what is not, and what am I over feeling, and what deserves my emotions and what doesn't. This is really kind of a almost maturation of sorts, a growing up period. It's in opposition to the sun, which it always is. So the full moon is always in opposition to the sun. That's why it's a full moon. But we also have Saturn opposite the sun, and that's been all week. And that actually will end on the 2nd of this week. And that's tough, tense energy to begin with. Restrictions on the self, restricted from being the self, the truth of who you are. Different kinds of criticisms or being overcritical, hypercritical of who you are. And then the moon comes along and it's also like all these emotions and even immaturity kind of lopping onto this sense of criticism. So this could be a very difficult energy, but it also represents a time to release all the sadness, bitterness, maybe hatred, resentment, and disappointment, and also disillusionment that can come with this kind of energy. It is really a point of relief and release in order to open space inside of us so there can be reconfiguration, moving around and taking in the new. This Pisces full moon, like Saturn, is also semi-square to Chiron, which means it does have a lot to do with not feeling good enough. And the wounded sense of who you are, even wounds from way back when, way back in childhood, since the moon will be a semi-square to Chiron too. Wounds that haven't healed completely, that maybe are still bleeding, and that's why there's so many emotions around them. This is when all of those things will be highlighted and hopefully pop so that they can be, though maybe painful at the moment, released and healed. So big day on the 30th. We also have, I talked about Uranus. Mars opposite Neptune only goes through the 30th, maybe the 31st if you count aspects up to 7-8 degrees. For me, I think they're only, I only count them or really look at them within 5 degrees. So for me, by the 30th, definitely by the 31st, Mars and Neptune will no longer be in opposition to each other. This is very good energy because it's going to release that sort of pop-off-ishness about I have to overcompensate for my inadequacies, even though the inadequacies are things that are shadows. They're fantasies. They're not real. And so it's like overdoing it to prove what doesn't even matter in yourself, and or taking action while you're leaping at shadows in the wrong direction. So this is really deceptive energy, and I'm glad that it's passing. Also, by the 2nd, the Sun's opposition to Saturn will pass because the Sun will have moved on and Saturn will retrograde or be continued to retrograde. So honestly, I think that this is a week overall of release, of when we can actually start to feel weight started to be lifted from us and feel less restricted. Now, what's ironic is that every single planet is either in retrograde or shadow except for Mars right now, but Mars is in detriment in Libra where it is right now. It's all about taking action and fighting for equality or making sure things balance the scales, right? Even if you got to get aggressive doing it. But ultimately, it's not the most progressive energy when it comes to Mars energy, and everything else is in shadow period or it is in retrograde. Now, most other planets are in retrograde, but check this out. On the 3rd, Jupiter goes into retrograde. So on the 3rd, we have Venus retrograde, Jupiter retrograde, Saturn retrograde, Neptune retrograde, Pluto retrograde, Uranus retrograde. I mean, Chiron's in retrograde. Holy moly, a lot to look at, right? This sense of, hello, stop rushing. You can't rush. You're supposed to open your heart and receive and stop trying to get more because it's all about, you know what, I already have, and this is a beautiful time for me. And it is a very beautiful time. So it's good to sort of like sit back and sit back and allow, and take stock. Take stock and get rid of what you don't actually need. It's a great time to purge. Get stuff out of the way as we hunker down for the fall, as we move more toward the autumnal equinox. And then on the 4th, Venus goes out of retrograde, but it's still in its shadow period, meaning it's not really moving that fast. Yes, it is starting to move direct, but you won't start to feel it really gain her full momentum till beginning of October. So ultimately, Venus is just starting to not go retrograde anymore. So kick back, man. Let things slow down just naturally. On the 4th, we have an interesting day because the moon conjuncts Jupiter and Uranus, and it's trine to Mercury conjunct the Sun. So this can be quite the beautiful breakthrough of just surprise opportunities or surprise, almost like a surprise optimism that comes through when something becomes clear and you figure something out. And that's something that could be very breakthrough for all of us. Mercury conjuncts the Sun on the 3rd. So that's kind of, aha, I didn't see this. I may have missed this because it is Mercury retrograde. But we could start to really solve problems and get nice answers and find solutions during that time. I like that energy too. Venus is still in square to Jupiter, which means decadence and indulgence. So I would watch this stuff. And if anything that's being highlighted now, it's where we have done too much, gone too far, been excessive in places where we don't really need to be. So it's like we really do have so much more than we've given credit for. Let's go into Aquarius specific energy, shall we? Well, we've gone over, let's go over, Aquarius, let's start there. How do I get this information? So I look at what's going on in Aquarius, and I can tell you right now, there's nothing. Nothing really major is happening in the zodiac sign of Aquarius right now. What is going on with Saturn? We touched a little bit upon it. Saturn is at 3 degrees Pisces, and it's going to be conjunct this beautiful full moon. You'll be able to actually pick it out, point it out in the sky. It can be quite spectacular. But that's also a very emotional time. And the more you try to restrict your emotions, the bigger they pop. And the fact that this is a super moon is really a face-off between the energy of, the energy of illusion, how we were fooling ourselves. Maybe we're fooling ourselves with our restrictions, that we're not as restricted as we think we are. Those kind of energies can really pop off right now. And then the opposition to the sun. So Saturn is in opposition, or the sun is in opposition to Saturn through the 2nd, but then it's gone. It's over with. By the end of the week, we're sort of liberated from that energy of feeling constricted or restricted or oppressed by our own self-criticism. So honestly, by the end of this week, Saturn will start to release a little bit and be a little less on everybody's ass. Let me just put it that way. We also have Uranus to look at, though, because that is your modern ruler. That is your primary ruler right now. And what's going on with Uranus? Well, it just went into retrograde. And we discussed that in the beginning of the reading, right? This sense of internal surprises. Something can really come up that you didn't expect, but it doesn't have to be bad. And then we have, so Uranus is at 23 degrees Taurus. It will stay there. It started as retrograde yesterday. It's going to be trine to Mercury through the 2nd of September, which means that's really just brilliant energy. A lot of aha moments, or things that we can recognize that maybe we had to look introspectively to realize or understand. And then we have that trine to Pluto, which will only last for a couple more weeks, because Uranus will retrograde out of that trine to Pluto. So interesting to see how that impacts Uranus when it's not trine to Pluto anymore. I think the intensity and maybe even your impact on people will not be as profound. For some of you, that will be very good, and others, you won't like it much. But if you prepare to slow down, I think that you'll be okay with it. Okay, let's break things down into the 3 decans of Aquarius. Shall we, Aquarius? If you know that your natal sun is between 0 and 9 degrees Aquarius, your natal sun is in the first 10 degrees or decan of Aquarius, and you are Aquarius 1. So that correlates to Aquarius birthdays in January. Say January 22nd or the 21st if you were born there, Aquarius, but January 22nd through the 31st. That would primarily be Aquarius 1s. Your natal suns only if you're at the cusp. So only if you're born 21st, 22nd, 23rd. Your natal suns are conjunct to Pluto. And they will continue to conjunct Pluto because Pluto's coming back at you. Right? So this gives you just a more formidable energy to you. A no nonsense, don't shit with me kind of personality. And you're not afraid. You're not as afraid as you normally would be. So it could be quite domineering energy, but also quite progressive energy, depending on how you use your energy. That's over the next couple of years. All of you are trine to Mars all week long. So there is a harmony with energy, or putting energy into harmonizing things, since Mars is in Libra. There is that sense of feeling more fluid and happy and content in your physical body, and with the actions that you take, you can actually get more lackadaisical. And kind of, if you're doing any movements or anything right now, or working with your physical self, they could be more fluid movements right? More in harmony with balancing out your system instead of forcing new things on it. We have a quincunx to the sun through the second, which is tension, or like a spur in your side, like something nagging at your sense of self, at your ego, at your courage, something probably trying to poke you to stick up for yourself or take action on something. And then you have a Sesa square to Mercury in retrograde, which could just intensify the Mercury retrograde energy and make it an extra son of a bitch. Just watch out for those things breaking down, and don't be surprised, especially since Mercury is trine to Uranus in the beginning of this week. Don't be surprised at all the surprise fuck-ups that'll happen because of this Mercury retrograde. Breathe through it. It'll only last a week. Let's go on to Aquarius 2s. So Aquarius 2s, your natal suns are between 10 and 19 degrees Aquarius. This usually correlates to birthdays between the 1st and the 11th of February. Yeah. Your natal suns are sextile to Chiron, which means there's opportunity here, or you're finding opportunities when you deal with your past traumas, and you're using your past traumas to sort of open up doors, not only for yourself, but for others, to teach them how to heal the way you've learned to. So this is really progressive energy. And then we have a semi-square to Neptune, which could be just slight confusion, or the fact that you're more easily distracted now. Yeah, it could be. So you just might have to redirect yourself a little bit more than usual, but that's a long-term transit. So honestly, you guys have kind of been in the thick of that for a while. Then we have a square to Jupiter, which is Sun square Jupiter is not, it's still optimistic energy, but it can get ahead of itself. It can have, its head can be a little bit too big and expect too much from doing too little. And so for you guys, this full moon, simply not because of its location, but simply because of its the energy that it produces, it could be, you could feel extra frustrated around this time. Extra frustrated and have extra in your face of, oh, you're not as good as you thought you were. You didn't do as well as you expected. That kind of energy. And then we have your natal suns being opposite Venus retrograde. This is tough energy because it challenges how you feel about your own aesthetic, how your own self, like feeling beautiful, feeling valued. You know, do you feel beautiful? Do you feel valued? All of those things could come up right now and make circumstances a little extra emotional, especially when it comes to how you feel about yourself in your relationships. Are you feeling valued? Or are you getting sick of who you are, how you look? It's not a great time to make changes. You could changes to your aesthetic or your environment's aesthetic. Not a great time. I would wait a couple weeks. But also this sense of challenges with finances would not be uncommon, you know. And so it's asking you to dig deeper into who you are and finding value in other places other than your monetary value or your aesthetic. It's just like, go deeper. Stop being so freaking shallow. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what it is. And then we have a quincunx to Mercury retrograde, which can also cause extra frustration and irritation, and it's going to be a thorn in your side. Anything Mercury retrograde is going to be a thorn in your side, especially the information that might be discovered or something that might come up. It's just a sense of real agitation. So for this week, not a great thing to, your mind will be very distracted this week, especially by all these potential mess ups and glitches. So with Mercury retrograde, so I would say stay away from any important decision making. Don't sign any great important paperwork right now. Stay away from big purchases too, because your suns are in opposition to Venus. Just not the best time for any big moves right now. It's more a time to take in information and let yourself sit with it. All right, let's move on to Aquarius 3s. So if you know that your natal sun is between 20 and 29 degrees Aquarius, It's in the third decan of Aquarius. You guys are Aquarius 3s. This correlates to birthdays between, say, the 12th and the 29th, maybe the 28th, right? It's because sometimes February ends on the 29th. Usually it ends on the 28th. So right up to the Pisces cusp. Those would be you guys. So your natal suns are the ones conjunct to Saturn. So guess what? If you're at the cusps. If you're right rubbing up, because Saturn is at 3 degrees now, Pisces. I am not confident enough to say that your natal suns are going to conjunct this full moon, because the full moon, though it's conjunct Saturn, it's in a 4-degree orb of Saturn. It's at 7 degrees. So very, very few of you, maybe if you're born on the 29th, maybe you leap years, are going to feel the energy of 28th, 29th, are going to feel the energy of this full moon conjunction with it. But then you'll feel a lot of pressure. Like you'll almost feel yourself get really heavy, and then a huge emotional outburst to relieve it. So that's what you guys would be feeling. But cuspers, so say the 28th, 29th, you guys of February, you guys are conjunct to Saturn, and that means you've been hard on yourself anyway. You possess a certain kind of authority in your presence, and you are not afraid of leadership positions or laying down the law and being the law. So many of you could actually feel right now this sense of people being against you and feeling under pressure externally. Your natal suns are sextile to the north node and trine the south node, which means you are future focused and you want to take a more active role in your life, and you're more interested, or finding yourself more interested in those aspects of the world that you would normally have not been attracted to. You're going to start to see that opportunity open to get familiar with them and find joy in them as well. Take part in those kinds of things that differ from what normally you used to. You're growing up, you're maturing. Your natal suns are square to Uranus, at least for now. As Uranus is in retrograde, it will continue to retrograde, and but you guys will still feel this. The square to Uranus just means there are unexpected surprises and curveballs. It's probably been happening all year, and this sense of not wanting to feel restricted or confined by people's expectations of you. And then we have, and that's going to be for the next, definitely for the next year, you guys, that's going to be dominating. And then we have this quincunx to Mars, which is this week in particular not the best time to be overly physical, to take physical risks, not the best time. Maybe you'll have some aches and pains or agitations, or get really frustrated when you feel things have not been fair, and really, really be spurred into action to make that better, make that right. So you could feel a little bit more agitated when it comes to either you not feeling like you've been treated fairly, or you seeing it in the world. So expect that sensitivity to grow this week. You let me know in the comments below. I would love to know. And please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed this message, and then share it to your social media platforms so other people can enjoy it too. Remember to subscribe, please, to help astrology motivation grow. And then head on over to Born Without Boundaries Tarot for your week ahead tarot card reading. I look forward to seeing you there. Bye, Aquarius.